The moment Brandon Montgomery refused to shake my hand, I knew my 3 decades of service meant nothing to him. It was a cold declaration of corporate warfare, delivered with the arrogance of a man who had inherited everything and earned nothing. I stood in the glass-walled conference room on the 42nd floor, my hand extended in a gesture of courtesy that I had offered to defense commanders for 32 years. Brandon, the 32-year-old Stanford graduate who had assumed the chief executive officer chair 6 months prior, did not even glance up from the bound personnel dossier open on the mahogany table before him. He gestured vaguely toward the empty leather chair opposite him. "Sit down, Harlan," he said, omitting my title. He did not inquire about the quantum decryption lattice updates or the upcoming Department of Defense readiness evaluation. He simply pointed a manicured finger at the seat. I sat down deliberately. The leather was cold. I folded my hands calmly on the mahogany, maintaining the upright posture that 10 years in naval intelligence and 32 years at Vanguard Cybernetics had ingrained in me. When the surrounding structure begins to wobble, you become the anchor. We need to address the operational trajectory of Vanguard Cybernetics, Brandon stated, finally looking across the table. His smile was smooth, yet entirely detached from his eyes. "I have spent the past several weeks reviewing our personnel expenditure reports for the third quarter. The board of directors and I are initiating a complete corporate pivot. We are transitioning to an exclusively automated, artificial intelligence-driven software framework." I nodded slowly, keeping my tone measured. "I am fully familiar with the directives, Brandon. My engineering team has already integrated deep learning algorithms into our primary quantum encryption lattice. We are currently 3 weeks ahead of schedule on the Naval Fleet update." Brandon let out a theatrical sigh. He closed the file folder containing my employment history and nudged it across the wood. "You are speaking of incremental integration, Harlan. Patchwork updates on legacy frameworks. We are executing a systemic transformation. Look, your past contributions are undeniable. For your generation, you were exceptional. But frankly, your analog methodology no longer aligns with our digital transformation roadmap. The Department of Defense does not want conservative reliability anymore. They want rapid deployment. Your foundational architecture is simply too rigid," the words hung in the sterile air. I had authored the core source code that currently protected tactical communications across 3 maritime fleets. I was the architect who had poured the concrete for the foundation he was standing upon. "My methodology," I replied, my voice calm, "prevented a total security compromise during the November network attack. Our core system has maintained a 0% failure rate for over 2 decades. Structural reliability is not an obsolete analog relic. It is an absolute operational necessity." Brandon dismissively waved his hand. "That is precisely the narrow mindset I am talking about, Harlan. You are tethered to historic metrics. I am accountable to fourth-quarter financial projections. We require fresh perspective and digital natives who build without legacy baggage." He reached into his jacket, produced a heavy cream envelope, and slid it across the mahogany table. "Effective immediately, Vanguard Cybernetics is executing a strategic restructuring. This envelope contains your severance agreement. You will surrender your biometric badge, an encrypted laptop to human resources immediately. Security personnel will accompany you to the main entrance." I looked down at the cream envelope. I did not touch it. "You are terminating my position," I stated. "Exactly 2 days before our critical $2 billion Pentagon contract renewal demonstration." "We are streamlining operations," Brandon corrected, his thin smile tightening. "Do not concern yourself with the defense demonstration. Our new engineering leads have the situation fully under control. We are pushing the new automated build into production on Monday morning. We no longer require the original architect to paint the finished walls, Harlan." He glanced down at his gold wristwatch. The discussion was officially concluded. In his eyes, I was merely a redundant line item that he had erased from a spreadsheet. I stood up smoothly, leaving the severance envelope untouched on the table. I picked up my satchel and tucked my notebook beneath my arm. "I understand your position, Brandon," I said quietly. I turned and walked through the glass doors without looking back. Brandon believed he could strip away the creator while keeping the creation. He did not realize that the foundation he inherited was held together by legal realities he had never bothered to investigate. The walk to my office on the 30th floor felt like navigating an endless hallway. As I walked past workstations, the usual hum of technical conversation abruptly ceased. Senior developer Dean Albright quickly lifted his desk phone to avoid eye contact. I entered my office, placed a framed photograph of my late wife, Sarah, into my satchel, and closed my workstation. Attached to the chassis was an asset tag reading Department of Defense Clearance Level 5. I did not attempt to extract proprietary source code or copy internal files. I felt no need to take anything unauthorized. Brandon believed he was acquiring a static digital product that could be manipulated by automated scripts. He failed to comprehend that complex defensive software is an evolving structure. More importantly, he failed to comprehend who legally held the fundamental rights to the underlying architecture. A cold focus settled over me. Brandon Montgomery had made a fatal assumption. He assumed that occupying the chief executive officer chair granted him absolute ownership over every line of code within the server arrays. He had completely forgotten the turbulent history of the company's founding in 2009. As I reached the elevator bank, I passed the Human Resources office. Clara Jenkins, the Human Resources director, stood near the door holding a clipboard. She looked at me with genuine sorrow. "I am so sorry, Harlan," she whispered. "You know this was not my decision. Furthermore, I raised concerns regarding our statutory notification obligations under Title 29 United States Code, Section 2101, commonly known as the Warren Act, which requires 60 days advance written notice for large-scale structural layoffs." Brandon overruled legal counsel and insisted on immediate termination. I offered Clara a gentle nod. "I know it was not your doing, Clara. Do not burden yourself with it." I stepped into the elevator cab and pressed the button for the ground floor. As the doors slid shut, separating me from the building where I had spent 32 years of my life, I felt the precise, silent click of an engineered mechanisms sliding into place. I did not drive directly home. I needed a neutral environment to clear my mind and organize my strategy. I drove 4 miles south to Carl's Diner, a quiet establishment with worn red vinyl booths and staff members who had worked the counter for decades. I took a seat in the corner booth. Martha, a veteran waitress who had served coffee to naval officers since 1995, walked over with a steaming glass pot before I had even removed my overcoat. "You are away from the office early today, Harlan," Martha observed, filling a heavy ceramic mug. "Did the Pentagon grant everyone an unexpected holiday?" "Something along those lines, Martha," I replied, wrapping my hands around the warm mug. "Vanguard Cybernetics executed a strategic restructuring today. I was terminated." Martha froze mid-pour, her eyes widening in disbelief. "Terminated? After 32 years? You practically built that enterprise from a garage." "New leadership," I said simply. "They are pursuing an automated strategy. Pivoting toward incompetence, if you ask me," Martha grunted. "Your meal is on the house today, Harlan. Stay as long as you require." I sat in the quiet booth for 2 hours, reflecting on the origins of the company. Vanguard Cybernetics had not always operated out of a 42-story glass tower. In October of 2009, following the global financial contraction, the business was on the verge of total liquidation. George Montgomery, Brandon's father and the original founder, was a brilliant mechanical engineer but an overwhelmed executive. Vanguard was hemorrhaging capital. George had leveraged his personal property just to maintain server power. During that critical period, I was the operational anchor. For three consecutive months in 2009, when the company could not meet payroll, I worked 80 hours a week without receiving a paycheck. I spent those grueling weeks developing the core mathematical framework for our proprietary quantum encryption lattice. I missed personal anniversaries because I believed in the defense mission. I believed we were constructing software that would protect military personnel operating in high-risk environments. Because of the financial chaos in 2009, our legal infrastructure was highly irregular. Rain was pounding against the windows of a local tavern near the naval shipyard when I met with Nelson Cooper, my longtime friend from naval intelligence, who had established a prominent intellectual property practice in Washington. George is desperate to file the patent applications immediately. I had explained to Nelson over dinner. He needs to demonstrate proprietary assets to secure venture capital and naval funding. Nelson had studied me intently over his reading glasses. Harlan, pay close attention to me, he warned. You authored that encryption architecture independently on your personal equipment during unpaid leave. Vanguard currently owes you months of back salary. If George's enterprise collapses next month, your intellectual property will be swallowed by bankruptcy creditors. You file the provisional patent application, listing yourself as the sole inventor and sole owner, Nelson instructed firmly. You grant Vanguard Cybernetics a conditional operational license. You assign the permanent patent rights to the corporation only after they fully settle their financial obligations to you and maintain your active employment contract. Protect your intellectual creation, Harlan. Corporate loyalty is historically one-sided. I followed Nelson's precise advice. On October 15, 2009, we filed the provisional patent documentation with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. In the rapid growth that followed, the acquisition of naval defense contracts and executive management, the final assignment paperwork was neglected. Draft agreements were generated, but George Montgomery never executed the final transfer documents, nor were they ever recorded with the Patent Office. For 15 years, Vanguard Cybernetics had been operating under an implied conditional license tied directly to my active employment. Furthermore, Section 14, subsection C of the original provisional agreement contained a specific legal provision drafted by Nelson Cooper. Under Title 17 United States Code, Section 106, which governs the exclusive rights of copyright and patent owners. The provisional license granted to Vanguard Cybernetics was explicitly contingent upon my continued employment without cause. The agreement stipulated that upon any involuntary termination of Harlan Miller without cause, all operational licenses granted to Vanguard Cybernetics would instantly terminate, and all exclusive rights, title, and interest in the quantum encryption lattice would automatically revert to the sole inventor. Brandon Montgomery had assumed that because he occupied the corner office, he held absolute legal control over every piece of technology within the building. He had never examined the historical intellectual property filings from 2009. He had unknowingly executed a corporate action that stripped Vanguard Cybernetics of its legal authorization to utilize its primary software framework. I left a $20 bill on the diner table, thanked Martha, and drove home. As I unlocked the front door, the sound of paws on hardwood signaled the arrival of Buster, my 7-year-old golden retriever. Buster trotted into the hallway, carrying a tennis ball, but stopped when he noticed the satchel in my hand. "It is just you and me today, Buster," I said softly. I walked into my home office and opened the heavy steel floor safe hidden in the closet. I turned the dial carefully, right to May 10th, Sarah's birthday, left to June 24th, my enlistment date, right to October 15th, 1989, the date I entered defense engineering. The safe handle clicked open. From beneath a stack of tax records, I retrieved provisional patent registration number 10,234,457, filed October 15, 2009. Section 14, subsection C was explicit. In the event that the sole creator, Harlan Miller, is involuntarily separated from employment with Vanguard Cybernetics without cause, all operational licenses granted herein shall terminate immediately, and all exclusive title, rights, and operational authority under Title 17, United States Code Section 106, shall automatically revert to Harlan Miller. I picked up my telephone and dialed Nelson Cooper's office line. "Harlan," Nelson answered on the first ring. "I received news of your departure. Everyone in the sector is astonished. Brandon Montgomery is claiming it is a routine modernization effort. I am holding the 2009 patent documentation." "Nelson," I stated, "I am reviewing Section 14, subsection C." There was a brief silence on the line. "Harlan, Vanguard Cybernetics never filed the subsequent assignment of rights with the Patent Office," Nelson said. "George was too cautious about legal fees in 2009, and their legal department completely overlooked it. Under Title 17 United States Code Section 106, You hold exclusive rights to the underlying source code and cryptographic lattice. Vanguard Cybernetics currently possesses zero legal authority to execute, demonstrate, or commercialize that software. If Brandon Montgomery attempts to present that technology during the Pentagon demonstration on Monday, Vanguard will be committing willful patent infringement and federal procurement fraud. I sat back in my desk chair. Brandon did not merely fire me, Nelson. He called 32 years of engineering excellence an obsolete analog line item. He attempted to humiliate my entire team. We will submit the formal notice of revocation to the patent registry on Monday morning at 9 o'clock. We will allow Brandon Montgomery to proceed exactly as his arrogance dictates. Over the weekend, I maintained absolute tactical discipline. I did not log into any corporate communication platforms, nor did I respond to frantic text messages from former colleagues asking for administrative passwords. I spent Saturday morning trimming the hedge along my driveway and taking Buster on long walks near the river. In high-stakes situations, silence is a powerful force. When an adversary operates without full information, their own hubris accelerates their mistakes. On Monday morning at 8:30, I sat down at my personal computer in my home office. I opened a secure connection to the United States Patent and Trademark Office electronic filing portal. I logged into my verified inventor account, located patent registration number 10,234,457, attached a certified copy of the termination letter signed by Brandon Montgomery, along with an official notice of operational license reversion under Section 14, subsection C, and executed the submission at precisely 9 o'clock in the morning. The portal updated instantaneously. The official public status of the core quantum encryption patent shifted from conditionally licensed to rights fully reverted. Owner: Harlan Miller. Automated legal intelligence systems utilized by major defense contractors and federal procurement offices scan the USPTO database every hour for status alterations on active defense patents. The reaction was immediate. At 10:15 that morning, the main switchboard at Vanguard Cybernetics attempted to contact my home line. I allowed the call to proceed to voicemail. At 11 o'clock, an urgent electronic message arrived in my inbox from Vanguard's general counsel. The message read, "Dear Mr. Miller, we have identified an administrative irregularity within the United States Patent and Trademark Office registry, indicating that patent number 10,234,457 has been flagged as reverted. We assume this technical glitch was automatically generated by your HR processing. Please execute the attached remedial rights assignment waiver immediately so our legal team can correct the public record prior to our 2 o'clock Pentagon presentation." I smiled quietly at the screen. They were requesting that I sign away a fundamental multi-billion-dollar asset because they considered their own oversight a mere technical glitch. I drafted a concise reply directly to Brandon Montgomery, copying George Montgomery and every member of the Vanguard Cybernetics Board of Directors. Be advised that there is no technical glitch. Pursuant to Section 14, subsection C of the original 2009 filing, ownership and exclusive rights to the quantum encryption lattice fully reverted to me at 9 o'clock this morning, following my involuntary termination without cause. Under Title 17, United States Code Section 106, Vanguard Cybernetics possesses no legal authority to deploy, display, or commercialize this technology. Any unauthorized demonstration during today's Department of Defense evaluation will constitute willful intellectual property infringement. Sincerely, Harlan Miller. Within minutes, the executive floor at Vanguard Cybernetics erupted into chaos. General counsel ran down the hallway to Brandon's office holding a printed copy of my message. However, rather than halting the presentation or contacting me to negotiate, Brandon Montgomery panicked and doubled down on his arrogance. According to internal reports, Brandon flew into a rage, declaring that a legal paper from 2009 could not override corporate authority. He dismissed my notice as a baseless shakedown tactic. He was terrified that admitting an intellectual property flaw would destroy his inaugural defense contract. Consequently, Brandon made a disastrous operational decision. He instructed Dean Albright and the senior development team to write an unauthorized digital bypass script around the software's license verification protocol, forcing the application to launch during the demonstration without validating its legal authorization key. By issuing that directive, Brandon moved beyond a civil intellectual property dispute. He engaged in the intentional circumvention of digital security protocols and committed forgery under California Penal Code Section 470 by altering system authorization signatures to misrepresent corporate ownership. Furthermore, his actions constituted an absolute breach of fiduciary duty to Vanguard's shareholders and an intentional dissipation of corporate assets by recklessly exposing the enterprise to catastrophic statutory penalties and federal debarment. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, my phone rang. The caller identification displayed George Montgomery. "Harlan," George said, his voice frail. "Brandon claims you are attempting to sabotage our defense demonstration out of resentment over your retirement package." "It is not a sabotage attempt, George," I answered. "It is a simple legal reality. Did you ever execute and file the permanent patent assignment documents in 2009? George let out a heavy sigh. "In 2009, we were fighting just to keep the power on, Harlan. Outside counsel wanted $10,000 to finalize the assignment transfers. I assumed we would settle it later, and then the matter slipped from my attention as the company grew. Then Brandon terminated the sole owner of the underlying intellectual property without reviewing the legal framework," I stated. "Harlan, please," George pleaded. "The Pentagon demonstration is scheduled in less than 1 hour. A $2 billion defense contract is at stake. If this presentation fails, Vanguard Cybernetics will face financial ruin. Can we not settle this matter amicably?" "It is too late for informal arrangements, George," I replied. "The USPTO Public Registry updated at 9 this morning. Defense procurement officers monitor status changes automatically. If Brandon attempts to present my software today, he will be committing federal procurement fraud. Are you truly prepared to dismantle everything we built together?" George asked softly. "I did not dismantle this enterprise, George," I said firmly. "You allowed your son to take command of a vessel he did not understand, and he chose to throw the chief engineer overboard. The consequences belong entirely to him." I ended the call and transmitted 2 documents to Commander Evelyn Pierce at the Department of Defense: a certified copy of the USPTO ownership reversion notice and a time-stamped system log excerpt, confirming that Vanguard Cybernetics had implemented an unauthorized digital bypass to circumvent the license check for the 2 o'clock presentation. I attached a brief memo. "Commander Pierce, for your situational awareness regarding the 1400-hour Vanguard Cybernetics demonstration, the vendor does not hold valid legal title under Title 17 United States Code Section 106 to the quantum encryption lattice being presented. Furthermore, system bypass protocols have been deployed to mask license invalidity. Recommend immediate operational verification. The trap was fully armed. Brandon Montgomery was about to step onto a public stage, completely unaware that his house of cards had already collapsed. I did not need to attend the presentation in person to monitor the outcome." Vanguard Cybernetics had established an internal video broadcast for the demonstration, streaming the event to all regional offices. Although my standard employee credentials had been revoked, the administrative diagnostic portal I had engineered into the video distribution network in 2018 remained active. I logged into the stream from my home terminal at precisely 1:50 in the afternoon. The venue was an auditorium in Arlington, Virginia. The room was filled with high-ranking military officers, defense analysts, and industry executives. In the second row sat Commander Evelyn Pierce, alongside the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition. Commander Pierce maintained a rigid posture, holding a military tablet on her lap. At 2 o'clock, the main stage lights brightened. Brandon Montgomery walked out to the center of the stage wearing a custom Navy suit. He wore a wireless headset microphone and moved across the stage with rehearsed charisma. Behind him, a giant projection display featured the Vanguard Cybernetics emblem alongside graphic representations of global network grids. "Ladies and gentlemen," Brandon began, his voice projecting smoothly through the auditorium, For over 3 decades, Vanguard Cybernetics has provided foundational security for our nation's defense infrastructure. However, traditional defense approaches are no longer sufficient against modern threats. Static encryption methodology is obsolete. Today, Brandon continued arrogantly, Vanguard Cybernetics introduces the next generation of defense technology, the Quantum Automated Defense Lattice. This system represents a complete departure from the rigid paradigms of the past. It is fully proprietary, entirely automated, and exclusively owned and operated by Vanguard Cybernetics. At that exact moment, I watched Commander Evelyn Pierce look down at her tablet screen. An automated system notification flashed on her display. She tapped the screen, reviewed the attached USPTO status documentation, and leaned over to show the tablet to the Undersecretary of Defense. The Undersecretary put on his glasses, his brow furrowing as he scanned the official patent registry report. Brandon continued his presentation, unaware of the shift in the front row. We are prepared to deploy this advanced architecture across all Naval Fleet Command nodes within 48 hours. There are 0 third-party dependencies and 0 licensing constraints. Undersecretary of Defense raised his hand sharply, interrupting Brandon mid-sentence. Motor Montgomery, the Undersecretary stated, his voice echoing clearly through the microphone system. Pause your presentation immediately. Brandon stopped, his confident expression wavering. He cleared his throat and offered a nervous laugh. Mr. Secretary, we have designated a dedicated question and answer period following the live demonstration. I am not asking a question. Mr. Montgomery, the Undersecretary interjected, standing up from his seat. I am reviewing an official legal notification from the United States Patent and Trademark Office, forwarded by our Procurement Compliance Division. The public record indicates that the core intellectual property for the quantum encryption lattice you are currently demonstrating, patent number 10,234,457, reverted to the sole ownership of Mr. Harlan Miller at 9 o'clock this morning under Title 17 United States Code, Section 106. A heavy silence descended over the auditorium. The low hum of the projection equipment was the only sound remaining in the room. Brandon's face turned pale under the stage lights. He glanced nervously toward the side of the stage where his general counsel stood motionless in the shadows. There must be an administrative misunderstanding, Mr. Secretary. Brandon stammered. That is a minor clerical issue resulting from a recent personnel transition. Vanguard Cybernetics maintains full operational control over all corporate assets. The record explicitly states that Mr. Harlan Miller is the sole legal owner of the technology. Commander Evelyn Pierce spoke up, her tone cold and authoritative. Is Mr. Miller currently employed by Vanguard Cybernetics? And does Vanguard possess a valid, executed license to demonstrate this software today? Brandon swallowed hard, visibly sweating under the bright lights. Mr. Miller recently separated from the company. However, our internal development team has fully integrated the software, which brings us to a far more serious matter. Commander Pierce interrupted firmly. My office has just received verified system logs indicating that at 13:20 hours today, an executive administrative command was issued within your network to hardcode a digital bypass around the software's license verification protocol. Mr. Montgomery, did you authorize an override of system security checks to execute this demonstration? The auditorium erupted into quiet murmurs. Defense contractors understood the gravity of the statement. Implementing an unauthorized digital bypass to misrepresent software ownership to the Department of Defense was not merely a civil contract breach. It constituted federal procurement fraud, a direct violation of federal acquisition regulations and criminal software alteration under California Penal Code Section 470. Brandon stood frozen in the center of the stage. The arrogant young executive who had called my life, work, an analog line item just 3 days prior was now completely exposed before the highest officials in defense procurement. This demonstration is officially terminated, the Undersecretary declared sternly. Commander Pierce, initiate an immediate compliance audit of Vanguard Cybernetics' current defense contracts and notify the Department of Justice Procurement Fraud Unit. Wait, please, Brandon shouted, taking a desperate step toward the edge of the stage. We can resolve this immediately. The technical architecture is fully functional. It was simply an isolated internal disagreement with a former employee. The main projection screen behind him cut to black. The auditorium lights illuminated fully. Military personnel and defense officials began filing out of the room in silence. Representatives from major investment firms pulled out their mobile phones to execute immediate sell orders for Vanguard Cybernetics stock. Brandon remained standing alone on the stage, stripped of his confidence, looking hollow and defeated. I closed the diagnostic video stream on my computer. The silent quiet of my home office returned. Buster trotted over and placed his head on my knee. I patted his head gently. "It is over, Buster," I said quietly. The foundation held. The aftermath of the failed Pentagon demonstration was swift and severe. By the time the financial markets closed that afternoon, shares of Vanguard Cybernetics had collapsed by 42%. National business publications published scathing headlines detailing the scandal. Defense contractor disgraced in Pentagon IP fraud. Vanguard CEO accused of criminal software bypass. $2 billion defense contract collapses over patent reversion. For 2 days, I turned off my home phone and allowed my electronic mail inbox to fill with messages. I spent those days working in my garden, repairing the wooden fence in the backyard, and enjoying a quiet meal. On Wednesday morning, a large black sedan pulled into my driveway. I was sitting on the front porch sipping coffee when George Montgomery stepped out of the vehicle. He appeared visibly aged, walking slowly with the aid of a wooden cane. He walked up the concrete path toward the porch, looking tired and humbled. "May I sit down, Harlan?" George asked softly, stopping at the base of the porch steps. I gestured to the empty wooden rocking chair beside me. "You are welcome to sit, George." George climbed the steps with effort and sat down in the rocking chair. He stared out at the quiet street for several minutes before speaking. Brandon was formally removed by the board of directors. Late last night, George revealed, his voice shaking slightly. Effective immediately, the Securities and Exchange Commission has opened a formal inquiry into corporate disclosures, and the Department of Justice is evaluating the license bypass incident for potential criminal charges under California Penal Code Section 470. He brought those consequences upon himself through his own lawless choices. "George," I stated calmly. "I know," George confessed, covering his face with his hands. "I failed as a chairman, Harlan. I stepped back from operations, allowed wealth to blind my judgment, and permitted Brandon to run the enterprise without discipline or integrity. I allowed him to treat institutional knowledge as an obsolete burden. Vanguard Cybernetics faces immediate insolvency," George continued, placing a thick leather folder on the table between us. "Federal defense procurement contracts have been suspended pending an intellectual property audit. The board has authorized me to present this agreement to you. It contains an unencumbered license buyout offer of $50 million, alongside a retained consulting arrangement. We are pleading with you to save the enterprise, Harlan. Over 300 dedicated employees, people you hired and trained, will lose their livelihoods if Vanguard collapses." I looked down at the leather folder on the table. I did not open it. I thought of Dean Albright, Clara Jenkins, and the dozens of talented engineers who had devoted their careers to Vanguard. I thought of the vital defense systems that protected active military personnel across the globe. "I do not want your $50 million, George," I said quietly. George looked up in astonishment. "What are you asking for, Harlan?" "I require complete structural and operational restructuring of Vanguard Cybernetics," I answered firmly. "First, I will not serve as Chief Executive Officer, but I will assume the position of Chief Technology Officer permanently, with full executive authority over all software architecture, engineering personnel, and intellectual property filings. Second, I demand a permanent seat on the board of directors with absolute veto authority over any technical roadmap or operational restructuring. Third, the board of directors, and you must issue a public corporate statement acknowledging that the core quantum encryption lattice was authored exclusively by me, and that my recent termination was an unlawful administrative error." George nodded slowly, listening attentively. "What else?" "Fourth, I am establishing a dedicated legacy architecture and system integrity division," I continued. This division will focus on foundational reliability, rigorous security testing, and long-term structural engineering. Furthermore, Vanguard Cybernetics will immediately issue formal offers of reinstatement with full-back pay to every veteran engineer who was terminated during Brandon's 6-month tenure. Finally, Vanguard will fully comply with all statutory severance and notification mandates under Title 29 United States Code. Section 2101, ensuring that no employee is ever again subjected to summary dismissal without proper legal notice. George looked at me, seeing the absolute determination in my eyes. He recognized the same principled engineer who had worked unpaid for 3 months in 2009 to keep the company alive. "Your terms are entirely accepted, Harlan," George said quietly, reaching out his hand. "Welcome back to Vanguard Cybernetics." I shook his hand firmly. 6 months later, Vanguard Cybernetics has emerged transformed. The enterprise is leaner, more focused, and structurally sound. Following my direct presentation of our revised licensing structure and security protocols to Commander Evelyn Pierce and defense audit officials, the Department of Defense fully reinstated our vendor eligibility and renewed our long-term fleet defense contracts. Brandon Montgomery reached a legal settlement regarding federal compliance inquiries, resulting in substantial financial penalties and a permanent ban from serving as an officer in defense contracting enterprises. My corner office on the 30th floor has been restored. My engineering team is fully reunited. Dean Albright now leads the Legacy Architecture Division, and our workspace once again reflects a culture of mutual respect, thorough craftsmanship, and technical excellence. Yesterday afternoon, as I walked through the main software development laboratory, I noticed a newly hired junior engineer, a recent graduate from an elite university, struggling to configure a hardware security module in the diagnostic rack. He was visibly frustrated, attempting to force a digital override key into an uncalibrated port. "Take a breath, son," I suggested gently, stopping beside his workstation. "Do not attempt to force the system. You must understand the underlying physical architecture before you execute the code." The young engineer looked up, wiping sweat from his forehead. "It just seems like an overly complicated mechanism, sir. Why not automate the override?" I smiled quietly and patted him on the shoulder. "Never dismiss foundational architecture as an obsolete relic, son," I said as I walked toward the doorway. "Because when you attempt to bypass the foundation, the entire structure eventually comes down on your head." I returned to my office and closed the door. Buster was resting comfortably on his leather bed in the corner. I sat down at my desk, opened my terminal, and reviewed the clean lines of source code scrolling smoothly across the screen. The system was secure. The legal framework was absolute. The foundation was mine.